I guess if everybody's ready here, we'll get started. Good evening and welcome to the second GTEAC meeting of the 2017-2018 school year. My name is Jeff Davila. I'm the president of the GT Advisory Council. Joining me this evening is Mr. Danny Lopez, our vice president, and Ms. Rebecca Hughes, our treasurer. We also have the director of the GT program and Advanced Academics program for Northside ISD, Ms. Courtney Mayer. We have our our secretary, Lizzie Aguilar Cruz, missing this evening, and the instructional specialist for the GT program at the district level, Kim Stewart, is not here tonight. And I'm going to go into a little bit of a detail as to why they're not here tonight. It's for a good reason, I assure you. But both of them are in Houston this evening at the Texas Association for the Gifted and Talented annual convention. And the GT program from Northside ISD is actually winning an award this evening. And I'm going to read to you a little bit of the a synopsis of the program that they're winning the award for. Piloting an initiative at 5 elementary campuses, Northside ISD's Math and Clustering with GT Students pilot clusters identified GT students into general education classrooms with high-ability math students. Although the idea of clustering gifted students is certainly not new, it is innovative to Northside ISD, whose GT department worked with the mathematics department to create new advanced level coursework. They have also recently established a team of GT specialists to work on designing a plethora of enrichment resources for these clustered classrooms and plan to use the TAGT Innovation Award to help purchase high-quality math tools to meet their high-ability cluster groups' needs. So it's definitely something to be excited about, and I want to congratulate Courtney and the great work that her and her team are doing at the district level for GT. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I never want anyone to think that no matter how good the program may be at any given time, we're constantly as a team trying to improve it further. And we won't rest until that happens. We'll never have a perfect program by everybody's standards, but we're constantly trying to improve and get as close to that perfection standard as we can. So with that innovation award from TAGT comes a $5,000 grant, so it's something to definitely be proud of. So Courtney, congratulations to you guys on that. And if anybody wants to applaud, please. I can't because I have the microphone here. So that's some very exciting news for our GT program. Our next order of business, as you will see, I don't usually have a panel of students behind me at most meetings, but they are here for a reason. We are always trying to bring you guys new topics and new resources that when you leave our meetings you feel like you learned something before that you didn't know coming in. So tonight is no exception. We have a student-led presentation which they're going to highlight their personal experiences and the impact the GT program has had in their lives, both personal and academic. I am going to introduce, and this is in no particular order, so just raise your hand and wave when I say your name. Amanda Swan from Harlan High School. Alexandria Gonzalez from, is it Brandeis? Yeah. Okay, from Brandeis. We have Malika, am I saying that right? Malika Dennis. Okay, sorry about that. Jonathan Valdez from Holmes High School. Rick Galvan from Holmes High School. Oh yeah, by the way, our VP, Mr. Lopez, is a graduate of Holmes, by the way. So if you hear some cheers and stuff, that's why. We have Nicholas Shriver from O'Connor. Ashley Ramon from Jay. Stephen, how do you say your last name? McNerney. Okay, I thought it was a lot more complicated. Okay, McNerney from Clark High School. And Isabella Garcia from Clark High School. Okay, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to them. I'm going to be asking them one question at a time, and we're just going to go down the panel, and they're going to answer that, to the best of their ability. So we'll start over here. If you're ready, do you want to start, or you want to be the last person?
I'll start.
Okay, and if you just want to read the first question, and then I guess we'll just have you read the question when the mic gets back to you, so everybody knows what's going on here.
All right, so my GT classes have been very different in a positive way from the rest of my other classes, whether it's an elective or a core class. And the reason why I believe that is because in GT classes, the curriculum is endorsed to promote creativity and curiosity for knowledge, which I think it's a great idea because, believe it or not, it's mankind's greatest power, not North Korea's missile test. So in that way, it is different. Also, the atmosphere it's very positive. Every student in there is very smart and is very driven to know more about really anything. I myself am taking ISM this year and I'm studying mechanical engineering. But there are some students like Rick here that wants nothing to do with science. But there's just that atmosphere that even though we have very different tastes, we both still share that same idea that we want to learn more about our certain likes. And in that way, the GT classes have been different for me. Thank you.
Going off of what Jonathan said, that's definitely true. Ooh, wrong way. All right. It's definitely true. The thirst for knowledge part goes throughout all GT students. Of course, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, all the people I've met in my GT classes have all been excited to learn about something that they care about. It doesn't always have to be something academic. It could be something like graffiti art or anything like that. But it's the fact that they have such a strong thirst for knowledge that brings us all together because we respect each other's passions and interests and enjoy learning about them while they learn it too. Something else that I also enjoyed about being a GT class was that it's not the typical class. It's not such a rigid structure of having to sit down, do the warm-up, get all your notes out, start writing the notes that the teacher says, whatever. Instead, you got in, you felt like you're in a comfortable place, felt like you came home, especially the teachers. I know definitely my teacher, Miss Prenda's at Holmes, really made the environment feel super comfortable, and like I'd never wanted to ever leave the class. I always wanted to go there, and I felt happy to go there and felt comfortable. And you didn't have to sit down, be at attention, like in the military or something. You could come in, relax, not so much of being like not professional, but you come in and you just feel nice. And that's something that I really appreciate, to have kind of a breather in high school, especially as classes get more and more intense, like AP classes and dual credit classes, to come into one class, even ISM, and to just kind of breathe for a second and be able to take on the challenges that you're going to have to face on your own.
I really like what's being mentioned about atmosphere in GT. 11 times out of 10 when you walk in, those kids will be the most passionate people you've ever met, and just the raw energy in a GT classroom is constantly so high. My GT class only has 7 students in it right now, starting out as a new school, and that's a stacked class with 3 different grade levels. And there has been days when all of the other 6 students are gone, it's just me, but that energy does not stop. And I don't know if that says anything about me, but the point is, it's a place where there are no wrong questions. And although every student in GT is incredibly academically driven, when you step into your GT classroom, it's a place for you to explore yourself, your own curiosities, and new questions every single day. So it's a place where if you're not exactly sure what you're asking, but you have everything to ask, that's exactly where you want to be. And I don't feel like that in any of my other classes.
Yeah, set the bar high. Okay. That was solid. So you've already heard a little bit about what GT's like in the classroom. And one of the things that as your middle school children or students as they're going into high school will realize is they're just starting to get used to the idea of multiple classes, multiple teachers. And in high school, it's no longer a homeroom class. It's 8 classes, depending on unless you're going to a magnet school. And they're usually 45 to 50 minutes every single day. The big difference, I think, with GT is not only in the environment in the classroom, but GT is not just simply a class that you spend 45 minutes a day in. It's something that you carry through yourself, outside of class during the day, and it's something that you're working on during the weekends, during breaks. In GT2 right now, we're working on community service projects, which is not something that can be done in 45 minutes. So it's something that you have to put your effort behind. You have to think outside of the box. And the thing that GT, no matter if it's GT1, GT2, or ISM, is it definitely requires you to be great with your time. And I think it's something that's valuable, and it's great to learn in high school before you go out to college or a job when time really does matter. So it's a great learning ground.
GT for me it's not like any of my other core classes like English or math. I feel like GT, it provides you with valuable life lessons, and because we're planning for college, we're learning about finance, or we're doing community service all in one class, and I feel that that's really beneficial. And every year, I'm a senior at Brandeis High School. I've been in GT since 5th grade, and every year in GT, especially in high school, it's been my favorite class because I feel that I get to connect more with all the GT students around me, because I feel like we all have one thing to bond over, and that's we're all GT, and we're just alike in a lot of ways. And I just love how GT, you never know what to expect, and you're always having fun in one way or another, and you're always given a way to express your creativity. And for me, that's really important, because in other classes I don't get to express my creativity as much, like in math. And so for me to be able to bond with others and create relationships while also learning lifelong lessons and things that will help me in the future, I really think GT is really beneficial.
I think everybody up here said a lot of really awesome things about GT, and especially GT in high school. So I know there's a lot of people out there who have, second graders, third graders, fourth graders that are also asking, what about my kids now? And especially in elementary school, GT were some of my most vivid experiences. For most people, a field trip in elementary school meant maybe going to the zoo or going to the movie. For me, as a GT student, a field trip meant, going to NASA, which I did in my freshman year, or not freshman, oh boy, first grade year. The amazing Alpha race in third grade. We did some awesome trips, just as, little kids. And I think that really GT helped me to realize that I wasn't held down by the boundaries of what a regular class might limit students to, because there would be 25 or so students in a classroom. My GT class was about 10 kids or so, and we could do so much more. So when I got into middle school, got into high school, I already had that experience with freedom, had that experience with making my own decisions and making my own schedules, and really understanding what that felt like. So I think in that aspect, GT classes as a whole are very liberating for students, whether that is a first grade student or a 12th grader. Either way, we've gotten we've learned how to handle freedom well. So I think if you're looking at the long term, you start that in first or second grade, and when you get to our point where we're getting ready for college, you're really comfortable and really ready to handle all that. So I think that's been the biggest difference for me of a GT class, is just learning how to be a student outside, in and out of the classroom, how to really handle myself well.
I mean, I completely agree with everything that's been said today. I think for me, the biggest difference from my regular core classes would be the challenge of it. And that's not to say that GT is hard, because growing up in GT, my teacher in elementary school always taught me to say nothing is hard. Everything is difficult or challenging. To look at something as a challenge that may look difficult in the beginning, but it can be overcome. And GT is it's different, but it's not impossible. And it's something that really gives kids an opportunity to do more and do better than just the regular core classes. So while in elementary school, while everyone was learning how to do basic multiplication, we got pulled out of GT and we were learning about ancient Egypt, which was something that none of the other kids got to do. And it was such an amazing experience all the way up until now being in ISM. While everyone else is in their reading or their math class, I get to travel off campus and learn about midwifery with a mentor, which makes a personal connection. And GT is different because it gives us an opportunity to insert ourselves into the real world and get a jump start on that real life experience.
I think GT differs greatly from all my other classes is the teachers. They really make the difference. I was fortunate enough in elementary I had Miss Stewart as my teacher. In middle school I had Miss Rogers. And now in high school I have Miss Asbel. And they're really what makes GT different. They offer continued support, and they're always there to guide you and aid you when you have struggles, not even in just GT, but in other classes. I know sophomore year when we were signing up for dual credit, I wasn't comfortable enough to go talk to my counselor. Not that he wasn't available or that, he was reserved or anything. It's just I didn't have that personal relationship with him like I did with Miss Asbel. And so Miss Asbel's actually the one who got me signed up for dual credit. So GT teachers, they're really what makes, I think, GT what it is.
Thank you so much. That's, such a great explanation about what makes GT classes different from any other class. The second question for the student panel is, what have each of you gained by being in the GT program?
What I've gained the most out of being in the GT classroom is grit. So coming in freshman year, I was a GT student, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew that I wanted to get out of high school because I didn't want to wake up at 6 a.m. anymore. But I believe it was the first day of school, my freshman year. I came into GT and I said, oh boy, this ought to be a good one. And then I met my teacher, Miss Prentice, and then she just started talking about grit, which I thought it was weird because I was just like, so are we going to meet each other or not? So, yeah, going back to grit, it's basically like perseverance, but I feel like it's more stronger than that. And at many times during my high school experience, I've wanted to just give up on the class or just not want to do an assignment because I didn't understand or I just thought it was baloney. But being in the GT classroom a lot helped me to be more, it helped me to be more driven to get that A in the classroom. So, yes, great.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Jonathan. Ms. Prentice always talks about grit being an essential thing that you learn from not only the leadership classes, which are the first two classes you get into for freshman and sophomore year, but the ISM classes, which are much more difficult. But they definitely establish grit and help students just persevere throughout their entire high school career and throughout their lives. But something that I gained from being in the GT program was, well, two things really. One of them was self-confidence. I wasn't always so much of an extrovert. I had my little qualities every now and then. With your friends, of course, you're more comfortable and you can talk a little more, but definitely not in front of an audience or in a class. I was always the kid who was in the back of the class, in the corner, reserved to myself, didn't talk to anybody unless they approached me. That was it. And that lasted for a long time up until freshman or sophomore year, really. I was a little more out of my shell, not too much. But definitely in leadership 2 in sophomore year, it was a whole different world. Everyone there was just like me. Everyone, of course they were different, but they all had that same kind of personality. They didn't want to really talk to a lot of people, or they really were excited to talk to people. And that was something that I learned from just being in there, that there are people out there like me that I can talk to, and they have the same kind of anxiety or social anxiety and we all work together throughout our GT classes to get over that, to overcome these things, especially with giving speeches and stuff. Because getting in front of a class by yourself is already scary enough. But then being able to do it so many times really helped destroy that kind of fear of being in front of people, fear of meeting new people. Definitely established through ISM when you have to meet professional people. You get completely out of your comfort zone. And that's something I'm glad I got to experience in GT. And lastly, I was also one of those kids who, it happens in middle school and even through high school, because you focus on the idea of popularity. So no one wants to be the little nerd in the back of the class, but that's who I was. And I didn't know how to not be that. And I always try to see, how can I do this? How can I make myself look like the popular guy in school? Not possible, unless I really establish myself. And that's the thing. In high school, didn't believe it until junior year. I was able to come out of my shell a lot more and talk more to people. And I didn't care that they said, ew, you like history? I'm like, yes, I do. I know you probably hate it, but that's okay. I love history. And I'll talk about it all day. I won't make you listen to me, but I'll talk about it all day because I like it. And that's something that's stayed with me forever, or since then, and it has driven me to become more involved in my future career plans and future ideas for college and everything like that. So it's really put me a whole step ahead and even gave me some friends who understand that my passions are like their passions, just a little different.
So I really love how right now you just mentioned you love history, and earlier you mentioned you love science, and that he would not touch science with a 10-foot pole, because that completely touches on what I was going to say. All my life I'd heard, GT is the creative place, which is not untrue. It very much is so. But when you hear that, you expect to walk in and find a bunch of easels and, oh, someone's doing graphic design and there's a theater kid somewhere. And while that's definitely a major aspect of it, the creativity within gifted and talented identified students isn't just in artsy fields. It's being able to comprehend your creativity and use it in anything and everything. The interests span from typical art, painting, to history to science. And what makes these things go to that GT level is being able to problem solve, see it in a way no one else would think of. So what I've gained in GT is understanding that yes, when you walk into this space, you're surrounded by creative people, but you can see the different ways that that creativity is used and across many different fields. So in that way, you can understand how your creativity is the polar opposite of someone else's. And when you see that many different types of intellect in one room, it just expands your point of view on many different things. And of course, when there's that many people who think in such different ways, you're going to be exposed to so many different point of views. It just opens your eyes to a whole new world.
I think as noticeable by the panel and also what you've heard from us already is that GT students are not cookie cutter students. They come in all shapes and sizes. In a class you can have a varsity football player, you can have the valedictorian sitting right next to each other. Not that they can't be the same people, but you can have them sitting right next to each other. So you have different shapes and sizes, people from all different backgrounds, different extracurricular groups. And I would say that you may have already heard, throughout us talking ISM, and if you don't know what it is, I just wanted to mention what it is. ISM is a class for GT students who have the opportunity to do it between their junior and senior year, and it's short for Independent Study Mentorship. It allows the student to choose a field that interests them, and that could be anything from engineering to art curating, all the way to construction working, and they're allowed to study for a school year underneath a mentor that they can find in that field. And I would say the thing that I've benefited most from in GT is the fact that what I'm doing right now, and that's public speaking, the ability to network with people, make long-lasting impressions, because like I've said, we come from all backgrounds. We may have different interests in school and our futures, but there's no doubt that GT students are heading somewhere. Whether or not it's whatever career field they choose, they're going to be at the front row of that. So the ability to meet people, make everlasting impressions, no matter the age, no matter the expertise, it's the only program I've ever been in that allows a student who's nervous to talk about 1 minute about themselves within the course of a year, be able to talk for an hour about a field that they've only known for a year. So it really sparks the interest in students, and it sparks the ability for them to express it and give it to others in a limited amount of time. It allows them to think outside the box and just ultimately be confident in what they're learning in real time.
I agree with that because I'm in ISM as well, and this is my second year in ISM, and I remember junior year, before I even had started ISM, we went to an ISM meeting, and I remember hearing former ISM students talking about how it impacted their life and how they made a product, and to me it just sounded so overwhelming that I came home and cried, and I'm like, Mom, I don't think I can do this, like I'm freaking out. And just thinking about having to public speak in front of everyone was just kind of horrifying to me. And now my second year in ISM, and I'm talking here to y'all can see that I have grown through the GT program. And ISM has really given me an outlet to be able to public speak and not be afraid to talk in front of anyone, and just to not be afraid to be myself and to express my creativity. And also another thing that GT has provided for me is lasting friendships. In middle school, I met two of my closest friends, and it's senior year, and I'm still best of friends with them. And I think that's because GT has created such a great bond between us that you just can't break it, because we're always together basically and always connected through the GT program. So I don't know, GT has really provided a lot of things that different classes can't provide for you. Like, I know that Miss McDaniel, my GT teacher, I feel like I can always go talk to her, whenever I need something. And I feel like that's how every GT teacher is at every high school. Like, they're the one teacher that you can always go to, you can always rely on. And so if I feel that my GT classroom is like my home, like my comfort zone. So GT, the main thing that GT has provided for me is happiness and confidence.
What is GT? What have I gained from GT? For me, I think it's really important for me to keep looking back at my foundation, my roots. So I want to go back and talk a little bit more about elementary school and middle school GT. I also was blessed to have Miss Stewart for 5 years of GT. And I think the first thing that provided, and all my subsequent GT classes as well, provided a real support system for me. Miss Stewart is still a close family friend, 6, 7, 8 years later. And each of the GT teachers I've had since then has built upon that foundation to be, as everybody else has mentioned, somebody that we can talk to, somebody that will advise us in ways that even some school counselors can't, because our GT teachers really have a deeper understanding of what a GT student needs and what motivates a GT kid. The other thing that was really important to me in GT is the plethora of experiences I've had. Thinking back to elementary school, I studied space, and so 7-year-old me told my mom that I wanted to be an astronaut. The next year, we studied law and order, so 8-year-old me told my mom I wanted to be a lawyer. After that, we studied nature and ecology, we studied explorers, and then we studied architecture and structures. So in 5 years, before I was 12 years old, I had had all these incredible experiences in vastly diverse fields. And that really set the foundation as I hit middle school and hit high school I had some background in each of these things, so I could then really pursue what I was most interested by without having to gain all that background knowledge, because I already had it. So I think GT for me has been a foundation for almost everything else I've done with my life. And I really owe that especially to my elementary GT teacher and to the elementary GT program, because I think it's in some ways the most hands-on with students, because that's when we're in our really formative years, and a good GT teacher is a very formative person. So I think that GT is a lot of things, but GT is a tool that we use to shape the best and the brightest among us, to prepare them for success. And yeah, we're in high school and that's important and all. And yeah, we're going to college. That's kind of important too. But it's what are we going to do after that that really matters. And when I'm 30, I will happily look back upon my first and second grade years of GT, knowing that it's put me in this position.
Thanks for making me go next after that. As everyone said, as you've all heard, there's so many different things that we've all gained from GT, and everyone's experience is different because we've all gone to different schools. None of us went to the same elementary, middle, high school. We had different teachers, different classrooms. We were surrounded by different people. So we've all gained different things, but they're all positive things. For me personally, I think the biggest thing that I've gained from GT is my leadership experience, because if I were to have been in a normal class, not getting all of this extra attention or having these extra opportunities, I would just be like everyone else. And not that that's a bad thing, being like everyone else, but there's something special about being separate from everyone and having these extra opportunities. I honestly don't think that I would have been able to try out to be captain of my color guard team had I not had this foundation, as Steven said, set from elementary school. Is that, and especially in freshman year when we learned about leadership experience and we had a whole unit on what is a leader and what are the top 10 qualities, leadership is a big thing. And I think that that's really the biggest thing that I've gained from being in GT is being a leader. But I've also, like has been mentioned before, I've gained a bunch of friendships. You're in a group with people who, even though it's so uniquely diverse and everyone has different interests, everyone has the common characteristics that we are GT students. And I have friends who I was in GT in elementary school with who did not go to the same middle school as me and do not go to the same high school. They went to magnet schools or they moved or they left, but I still keep in contact with them because we had that initial bond in GT in elementary school. And I think that's such an important thing that everyone should have an opportunity to gain, is that those leadership skills and that bond early on in your school life.
I think what I've gained personally from GT, I know a lot of others have talked about it, but really is confidence. If Miss Asbel had asked me to do this freshman year, I probably would have been like, that's not for me. But after being in GT for so long, my confidence with public speaking has grown tremendously. You know, you start off in GT Leadership 1 and you're giving like 3-minute, 4-minute, 5-minute speeches, and now in ISM I'm giving hour-long speeches. And it's not even like, I don't even have to think about it. I'm so used to giving speeches because I've been doing it for so long. I know freshman year, I heard an announcement for electing class officers, and I asked Miss Asbel, I was like, do you think I should do it? Like, I don't know if I can. I don't want to have to speak in front of all my peers or have to run meetings or anything. And she told me, she was like, I mean, it's no different than like what we're doing in class. Like, you can do it. And she really encouraged me to do it. So I ran for it and I won. And I've been doing it for 4 years. And now I've come to the point where I just told my dad back in August, I was like, man, like I should have ran for president. Like, I can lead these meetings. I can talk to everyone. Like, I should have ran for president. But I ran for secretary and, I mean, still there. But really the confidence that it gives you to public speak is just, it's tremendous. I don't know, you can ask Miss Asbel, I was super like introverted, and I still kind of am in class. I'm really quiet, but when it comes to like speaking and things like this, I've definitely had a lot of improvement due to GT.
Well, as I expected, these GT students have, through their wonderful articulation, answered multiple questions with just one question. But so the question we're going to skip at this time is about how being in GT has helped encourage you to plan for your future. But by saying self-confidence, leadership, perseverance, and grit, you know, the comfort with diversity around you. I mean, that's beautifully said. I mean, I think there's no doubt that you're well prepared for your future, you know, thanks to the GT program and what you've learned from that. But at this time, if I could just skip that question and go straight to the most memorable part of your GT experience. Elementary, middle, high school, that one moment that stands out that you'd like to share, you know, that you'll remember for many, many years to come after you've long left the halls of Northside schools.
The memory that came to my mind was that in freshman year, I believe it was still in September, we were going to do our first speech. And believe it or not, I did my entire speech, which was called the pause speech, on the movie Finding Nemo. Yeah. So the speech we were just supposed to talk, I believe, 2 to 3 minutes. I talked for 10. I was the only student that went over the limit, and almost, I think, 3 times over that. And no, I did not talk about Finding Nemo. I just used the quotes that they said in the movie. But I talked about myself, and I talked about my life and what I want to do with my life. Of course, like I said earlier, I didn't know what I want to do with my life. I just knew that I wanted to be happy and successful, but not monetarily successful. I wanted to be happy because For a while, I had not been happy in middle school because of personal experiences that had caused me to go down a bad path. So after I finished saying my speech, I got nervous and I said, "Hey, Miss Prentice, did I qualify for the time?" And little did I know, I went way over the time, so much that the person that was gonna go after me didn't have any more time, so they had to go another day. That is the most memorable experience for me.
My most memorable experience, it's not so much just a single moment. It was all of last year, my junior year, my first year in ISM. I always wanted to be in ISM when I first heard about it, when Ms. Prentice told me, my GT teacher told me, because I could study whatever I want, and that was just amazing to me. So, of course, I immediately signed up when the course card came around. I was like, oh, yes, independent study mentorship, please. What I didn't know was there's only going to be 8 other people in there with me. Super small class. And I also didn't know how close we were going to be and how much of great friends we were going to stay. All throughout my junior year, well, for the first semester, we were really far apart. It was like a little small group here, a little small group here, a little small group here. And again, 9 people in the class. The class is pretty big, the whole classroom at least. So we're all just kind of like in each corner of the class, talking to each other. But after winter break, we never got any closer. We felt like a family every time we came in there. Miss Prentice felt like our mom, because she would get after us not for doing our work or something like that, because we were too busy talking to each other and planning things out, like going to spend the night at someone's house on the weekends, or going to go see a movie or something like that. And even just talking about our passions. Of course, not everything was about academics, but it was always amazing to go into that class and just see those people. And to this day, we all still talk to each other. We have a group chat, always going off, still going off right now. I already know it. I'm going to have 82 messages when I get out of here. But they're all different. The main thing was 6 of them, sorry, math, not good. Once again, history. 6 of them were seniors. So that means over half of them left this year. And so we had nobody. But because of that experience, me and the 2 other juniors in there became kind of the leading roles in the new ISM class, or this year's ISM class. And Jonathan knows that more than anybody. All the time I go up there and talk to the class entirely, try to get everybody closer together. Because that kind of experience I had is something I want all the other ISM and GT students to have. The feeling of just having people around you that are going to be your friends. They're not going to just ditch you like some of the other ones. They're going to be your real friends that may even go on to be lifelong friends. And that's something that I carry with me all the time in my heart, especially for Christmas, because we had a whole just talk about like the holidays, like how the seasons affect your personality and stuff like that, and like all the giving thanks and stuff. And every single person, I cannot even think about it very well, but like they all told me how much they appreciated me, and that was something I always keep in my heart, and that's why we're such close friends, because then we would do that all throughout the rest of the year. But yeah, so the friendships that I made in there were definitely some that I'm going to carry with for the rest of my life, and I could only get that through GT, not any other regular class.
Okay, so I completely relate to the experience memory being more than just a singular moment. Mine was also 3-ish years, so similar. I'm currently 16 years old, and it's new, y'all. And from the age of 3 until 13, I was diagnosed with severe generalized anxiety disorder. Now, I don't know why they say generalized. It just means that I had anxiety about everything. So, essentially, public speaking was a no. Talking was a no. Regular conversations, no. Friends, no. And at the age of 13, you'll recognize that's roughly between 6th and 7th grade. And this was, in large part, it ended at 13. That's what I'm saying. Because in 6th grade, I was thrown into a GT class in a new middle school with people who I had never been around before, like these types of people. They were loud and outgoing and boisterous and obnoxious. But being around them, shoved me out of my shell. I did not want to, but they yanked me out anyways. And so I consider that year, as well as 7th and 8th grade, those 2 years following, as a sort of purgatory, really long hallway from elementary to high school, where it was not only lessening my anxiety, but going beyond that point, from not having anxiety to having what some would call a lack of any anxiety. I currently, as you can see, am very loud. I consider myself a confident person. My school is brand new. I'm sure my teacher would have nominated a junior and ISM student to come, but there is one. So I am a sophomore. And she invited me because in my class of 3 GT2 leadership students, I am definitely the most outspoken. And I know that this would not be possible without GT. I would still be that girl who sat in the back of the class, did not speak. I could not make eye contact. It was rough. And now I'm just happier than I've ever been. And I know it could not have happened without the guidance from my teachers, without those experiences from those also GT identified. And that's something I'm going to have with me every single day, minute of my life. Because when I had that anxiety disorder, I was not happy. And being freed from that with the strong guidance, and in large part because of being in that community that if I hadn't taken that GT class, I wouldn't have been a part of. It's just allowed me to go so far. As a sophomore, I'm currently the co-president of my thespian troupe. I'm involved in 3 different officer panels. I'm in my student council. I'm highly involved in school, and none of that would have been possible without GT, and that's just something I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life.
So my favorite memory from GT is in middle school, and if you haven't already gained the vibe, we all recommend GT for your students if they're not already. But you know, in addition to the GT students being able to explore what they enjoy most in the class, no matter what it is, it's my true belief that GT is the wood shop for the mind of these students. You learn the most practical, and you're also allowed to explore the most abstract things and anything that you can possibly think of. You know, being able to give my first speech in GT, being able to learn about personal cues and conversations, learning basic hospitality, all in GT. But in middle school, my favorite memory is actually not even in class. It's coming home and telling my dad what I was learning in GT. So I told him, like, we're doing a finance unit, and he was like, that's awesome. You're going to learn how hard it is to pay bills and how money actually, you know, how far the dollar actually is worth. And trust me, you know, being a senior, I got my first job a few years ago, and that $10 means a lot more to you when you work, you know, 3 hours for it. So, but coming home, you know, he's like, did y'all learn about, you know, the light bill? It's like, no, we're learning how to balance a checkbook. And he was like, can you teach me? Because he had forgotten how much, you know, now everything's plastic. But you would think that something such as balancing a checkbook or being given a set budget and having to budget as a middle schooler, it sounds almost absurd. But it's definitely an interest of middle school students, and I'm glad I was exposed to it because it just, like, again, it sets that foundation for anything that you can come across. So.
Like I said, I've been in ISM for the past 2 years, and my most memorable GT experience, I'd have to say, GT was very memorable for me, but my ISM experiences have just been so amazing that I know I'll never forget them. I want to be a teacher when I get older, preferably elementary or high school teacher. I don't know, I'll get there, but so that's why I'm in ISM, and this year, I'm mentoring at Scobie Elementary School, and I know that whenever I'm a teacher in the future, I'm going to look back at my experiences in ISM that I had in high school. And I just think it's so great that we're able to, get these experiences as a high schooler that sometimes some college students don't even get to experience at such an early age. So I think it's cool that I get to look back at whenever I'm a teacher, that I get to look back at my high school years and think like, wow, I started this in high school. I've been prepared since high school. And also just the friendships that I've created, like I said, the friendships that I've created in GT and ISM have just been so amazing. And all my friends in GT are so supportive. We're also supportive of each other. I know last year we had an ISM class that was about 10 people, and I was intimidated because I was a junior and there was a lot more seniors in that class, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to talk to them, because I don't know, I was just more shy last year, even though I've never really been a shy person, but I was just shy to talk to seniors. But so at the end of the year, we were all really close, because just all of the public speaking that we have to do and all the different activities that we have to do together really bring us together and help us to form bonds that can't be broken. And I know that we all still talk, even though those seniors have graduated already. We have a group chat, and we always text in it, and we always check on each other. And basically what I'm trying to say is that GT has provided me so many memories that I know will never leave me, and it has provided me so much experience through ISM that I couldn't get anywhere else, and friendships that I wouldn't have been able to create in any other classes.
I think I speak for each of us here saying that if I tried to tell you one memorable experience from GT that's more memorable than all the rest, I'd be lying. So I'll try to keep it brief. One that really stands out to me, and I've told the story before actually, in my first grade year, GT was space exploration was the topic. And to go back a little bit, I want to talk about, again, activities outside of the GT classroom that I think are just as formative, if not more so. And so for space and science, we did what any normal class would do, and we slept over at Johnson Space Center in Houston. And in the process met an astronaut, had lunch with him. I still have a signed picture with him in my room. But I tell you all that because last summer I interned with NASA. I'm applying to maybe go back, and it's that experience that put me on this path. I had zero interest in space and probably wouldn't if it wasn't for that exposure through GT. And I am where I am now purely because of GT. So that moment has really stood out to me because it set me on the path for the rest of my life. Completely not related to any GT class, though, another really cool moment for me. Last year, the Texas state legislature was interested in passing a bill that was going to harm GT funding. So all three of my former GT students, Miss Stewart, Miss Rogers, who's here, and Miss Brown, organized letter writing campaigns to the legislators saying, we need to keep this GT funding. And it worked. God bless. But I think that moment, while maybe not memorable in the fact that it shaped me as a person, I think is really important because it represents how much GT means and how much it's meant to each of us that have gone through the program, how much it has to offer for all the students out there that might want to get involved in the GT program, and for all those who may one day end up in this GT program. I think it's really important to recognize the amount of effort and work that goes into supporting us as the students, and I can't tell you how much GT has shaped my life. I can do my best by telling stories, but it's not accurate enough. So that the fact that there were that many people that cared enough about me as a GT student and all of us other GT students, enough people cared that much to go out of their way to write a letter, I think is really indicative of the GT family. That's something, a phrase I've heard tossed around a lot, but it really struck home in that moment, that's what GT is about. That's what our teachers, that's what us as students, those that are making the policy decisions, that's what we're really about, is advancing opportunities and learning for those of us who need that advancement and desire that challenge. That's not really a memorable moment, but I think it's important to say either way.
I think, as Stephen said, for us, picking one moment is so difficult because there's more than just one moment that stands out and is defining for us. Everything that we've been through is so important to our development and our growth. So having 10 plus years of GT experience up in my head, it's a little difficult to think. If I had to, the first thing that came to my mind was to pick just one. So learning about ancient Egypt in elementary school, and we had to create some sort of project. We had to do research on something, and I chose to do the pyramids and how they were formed. And so when being a small child in elementary school having to make a speech in front of my class, it's something that not every other elementary school age child had to do. And what I ended up doing is I brought bags of marshmallows for everyone and a tub of icing, and we all made our own little pyramids out of marshmallows. And I remember wearing this big fluffy white jacket because I wanted to be a marshmallow, to just get some home like, hey, we're working with marshmallows today. It's going to be fun. So I think that moment just stands out for me because not only are we learning a bunch of stuff, but GT is fun. It's engaging, it's hands-on, it's different, and it's just so amazing. It's such an amazing experience to be in all the way, no matter what age you enter into GT, you have memories that will continue to stay with you throughout your life. And even today, just the other day, I was talking to my GT teacher, Miss Rogers, about my future, and she asked me, are you thinking about taking ISM again next year? And I told her, I've been on the fence a little bit. I was going to do it, and then I decided not to, but now I'm thinking I'm going to do it again. And right now I probably am going to do it again, mostly for the double lunch, but the experience also. But it's just these conversations that I have with my teachers, I'm going to keep with me forever because they're helping shape us. They're helping make us into better people and helping us become better leaders in our world when we graduate high school and when we actually enter the workforce and have to deal with outside experience. We're starting now, so that way this stuff is going to be memorable to us when we're adults and we're looking back on it. Not just one specific thing, but our whole experience that helped shape us.
I think my most memorable memory in GT would be, well, there's a couple of them, and they all have to do with volunteer work. Volunteer work is something, I guess, that I really enjoy. And so in 8th grade, our end of the year project, I think we were allowed to do whatever we wanted on it, and I chose to do conservation for water for Africa, and I designed a system of how Africans can conserve water since they desperately need it. And although it wasn't any hands-on volunteer work or anything, just getting to do that was really fun and I really enjoyed it. And then I got to high school and we got to do hands-on volunteer work that none of the other kids could do. It was just GT kids. We had to do the big event, and what that is each GT kid, there's a choice, I think, of 10 different places they can go. So the food bank, the Humane Society, Soldiers Angels, they can go clean graffiti. And it's just a day where you really get to think about something other than yourself and just really work and serve your community. And so I got to do Soldiers Angels a couple times where we go and we're making blankets to be delivered to the Veterans Hospital. And we actually got to meet vets, and I remember meeting this one man, and he had such a great attitude, and he was so sweet, and he's just someone I've always remembered. And I think that would probably have to be my most memorable memory is all the volunteer work that I got to do through GT.
Thanks so much. Does anybody in the audience have any questions for our panel members? And I know, as each of you are told, we're broadcasting to a handful of remote sites, so we'll give it a few seconds to see if we have any questions come in through that. But while we're waiting for that, I just want to say a couple of things. Hopefully each of you will agree with me. When I hear students like these speak about their experiences and their plans for the future, it renews my optimism about the future. There's a lot to be scared and sad about in society, nowadays, and to hear, these students with their heartfelt experiences, it means a lot, and it really renews that optimism about what the future is going to hold. And as you guys know, the GT Advisory Council, we are an advocacy group for the GT program, which means, whenever you have a group that has to advocate, there's always a group of people on the opposite end of the spectrum that think maybe there's not a need for a program like this. Maybe the money could be better spent somewhere else or something like that, but I would ask them to revisit that ideology after hearing students like this speak, because these experiences and the qualities that these students hold, this is what's going to carry on into the future. And these students have already touched on the real world problems that they intend to tackle and solve in the future. So, I really appreciate you guys coming and sharing your experience with that. I'm not sure if you knew Danny Lopez and myself. We're both former GT students with the Northside, and I hear a lot of the same things that we used to say, and it really makes me proud and happy that you guys are, doing so well in Northside, and you are having these great experiences, and just keep fighting that good fight. And don't ever let anybody tell you can't do something. Let that just push you harder to get that done. Do you want to say something?
So I definitely wanted to say I think we met the objective of tonight, which was to show you what the potential of this program is. And I don't think you look at any of these young men or women and say, wow, that's not what I want my child to be doing. This is what the program is about. And like Jeff was saying, we are both alumni of Northside and of the GT program. And so we try to be that example all the time, but it's just, we're getting old. so it's easier with you guys here. And I think if you're a GT parent, you have a young child, and you look at this and you're like, yeah, this is what I want my child to be doing when they're this age. And that's easy to do. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about is I truly, really appreciate you guys being here tonight and giving us your time. And I realize you have choices of what you can be doing, and y'all made a choice to be here. And I wanted to give you something to think about, something that had never occurred to me until I had a child, and that child was beginning into the GT program in Northside, which is what brought me to being part of this council. And it made me look at the GT program in a way that I'd never done before. And so what I want to ask you to think about is, what do you know about the history of the GT program? Public education has been around for over 100 years, but how did the GT program start? In the late 70s and early 80s, there were women not very different from the ones that you see in front of you, who were charged with creating a program to challenge and address the gifted students in our population. And Jeff and I were some of the earliest kids to start that program. And the people that you see in front of you have been stewards of this program and are maintaining it and taking care of it. And what I want you to think about is someday, as you grow up, you're going to live in a community, and those communities are going to have GT students, and they are going to need a program. Hopefully, as this community has done, we have invested in you, and you owe us a debt. The good news is, you don't have to pay us back. The bad news is you're going to pay the next generation. And you're going to have to go and become leaders of your communities and do the things and step in the jobs that we've taken, especially in education, just like the women you see in front of you. And you're going to find it's going to be one of the most rewarding experiences. The type of experiences that challenge what you just described in the GT program is what you're going to do in the future to help them. Okay? So I'm very proud, and I want to thank you again for coming out tonight. You had options of what you could do tonight, and so many of your peers are not doing this. So I appreciate that. All of these people are here because we want y'all to be successful. We want your peers to be successful. So thank you. Okay?
Do we have All right, no questions from the remote sites, which means that you guys did a heck of a job answering the questions and explaining that, because you answered everybody's questions before they had anything. But I sincerely appreciate, like Danny said, you guys coming out tonight. Hopefully you found it rewarding as well. And we're always here, and we're here for you guys. You know, out of, I've said before, the triangle that makes up the GT program, the base of that triangle, the foundation of that triangle is the students, and that's who we serve. You know, the council members, your educators, the parents, you know, we're all doing this for the students. So please keep doing what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for y'all for coming, and take a look at the candy bar wrapper. It's all around GT, everything around it. So I just rip it off and throw it away. And thank y'all very much.
Yeah, one more thing I was going to say before they all take off and leave. You heard a lot of them talk about some of their plans for the future, like career choices and things like that. I didn't hear any of them mention at one point them gauging their level of success by how much money they make. And I think that is one of the quintessential aspects of the GT student is they're always thinking about success as they're basing their success on how they're impacting other people's lives and what they're able to accomplish, not about money, but the impact that they're making. So I just think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. And now I just said about how it's nice to hear them not talk about money, but now I'm going to talk about money. But yeah, you guys. And I think it's very fitting that our next item on the docket is the advertising for our newly formed high school specific fundraising event. As you just heard, these GT panelists, they're all high school students now. You just heard them speaking about their experiences and the value of the program. Now it's time for us to help and keep investing in what they're doing and their futures. And so if you would bring your attention to item number 3, it's an advertisement for the high school specific fundraising event to be held in partnership with Main Event Entertainment this upcoming Tuesday, December 5th from 5 to 10 p.m. Some of you may have experienced or taken part in our previous Main Event fundraising events. They're a lot of fun. The cost that we've been able to negotiate is relatively reasonable, but I will say it is a high school only event this year. So it's only open to high school parents, high school students and their families. So we're politely asking that it not be younger children unless they're coming with big brother or big sister who is a high school student. But for the most part, we're trying to create an atmosphere where the high school students can kind of be around their actual peers, their age group, and just have a good time, as high school kids tend to like to do. So once again, that is this upcoming Tuesday, December 5th from 5 to 10 p.m. The details are the same, which is all wristbands will be purchased on site the day of the event. We will have a table set up as you enter Main Event, and we will be selling those wristbands and fun cards for $20 a piece, but that includes 5 hours of nonstop entertainment. So you're like, $20, wait a second, well, you can't go and watch a movie at the theater anymore for that. So to be able to have your child out of your hair for 5 hours at a cost of $20, I think that's money well spent. So once again, a $10 arcade card is what that includes, as well as a wristband for unlimited attractions. They have gravity ropes, laser tag, billiards, and bowling, and that does include the bowling shoes. So there is no separate cost for the bowling shoe rental. Does anybody have any questions about that fundraising event? Yes. Well, thank you. Yeah, the reason that it is a high school specific fundraising event is because the proceeds from that event are high school specific as well. We are, as a group, forming the newly found GTEAC Scholarship Fund, to be named later. Right now, I'm unofficially calling it the Ignite Scholarship because we have the Ignite Grant Fund already. But this is going to be a first for Northside ISD and definitely a first for the GT program. I definitely felt that we needed to put our money where our mouth was and not just sit up here and talk about how important it was to invest in these students, but to actually set something up to do it ourselves and to help a select number of graduating seniors from the GT program on their journey into college and so on. And so that is what the proceeds from this particular event will be going toward. So it is a very worthwhile cause, and I sincerely hope that we'll have a very good turnout and a successful amount of funds raised from this event. But any other questions about that? Not right now? Okay. Well, if not, I'll be around afterward if anybody wants to have a sidebar conversation. But without further ado, we actually have another special guest this evening. You're like, wait, we already had a panel. But yeah, well, we're doing a twofer tonight. We have a presentation and discussion of the social emotional issues, which is such an important part to any GT student and their family. But the social emotional needs topic is something that every year we try to have a presentation about that. But we'd like to welcome Miss Donna Cooper. She's the GT specialist from Carlos Kuhn Elementary School to speak about the social emotional needs of GT students.
Okay, are all of you good? I know you've been sitting for over an hour now, so I know for me, being a kinesthetic learner, I can't concentrate after an hour. So if you need to stand up and stretch a little bit, feel free to do that. Anyway, I'm going to speak to you this evening. Is it coming up there? Can you read that up there? Being the recovering perfectionist that I am. Okay. I'm honored this evening to have two of my students in the audience, Amber and Stella and their moms. Would you raise your hand? I'm so honored that you came tonight. Okay. So tonight I want to spend just a few minutes talking to you about the perfectionism aspect of the social emotional needs of gifted students. This is based on an article by Dr. Michael Pratt. I looked at several things. There's a lot of information on perfectionism as the characteristics, the good side, the bad side, but there's not a lot that I was able to find in an article about what do we do about that? What are some coping strategies? What are some things that we as parents and teachers should do and can do in order to help these students? So this was an article that I found. You could pull this up just by Googling it, but I thought it was very helpful, and I'm going to highlight that for you tonight. It's not going. Okay. All right, perfectionism as a way of thinking. Dichotomous, meaning all or none thinking, transforming desires, our wants, versus transforming them into our demands, where we must have this, we must have it perfect, we must do this extra thing. And then focusing on unmet goals and challenges rather than what we have accomplished and our successes. So there's a fine line striving to reach between the high standards of excellence and feeling self-defeated through unrealistic expectations that many of us go through. And in schools, this can lead to underachievement. Many times, underachievement, we think of it in terms of, oh, they're just being lazy, or they're just bored, or they're not motivated. But many times, if you really research into it, you will find that, especially with our GT students, it is an issue of perfectionism. And how many of us have stopped and hindered ourselves and self-defeated ourselves in things, whether it be going to graduate school or higher education or something else, because we weren't going to do it until we knew we could make a 4.0 or those kinds of things. So in school, sometimes it can lead to underachievement and not doing all that we can because we're waiting until we know exactly how to do it perfectly. Outside school, it can develop some serious health problems, such as we heard one of the young ladies talk about her anxiety that it caused. It can cause anxiety disorders at a very young age. I think she referred to even as young as 3, right? I've known children that had ulcers in 2nd grade. It can cause early hypertension in children. So we need to be, watchful of these kinds of things. It's such a problem and an issue sometimes in college that many college universities have programs and workshops on overcoming perfectionism to help students succeed more. So intense need for order and organization. You might say, well, these are the healthy aspects of perfectionism we're going to look at on this slide. we know that order and organization are important to success, right? Because we have to be able to find things. We have to be able to know where things are to a certain extent. So that's a good thing. But they also have a self-acceptance of their mistakes. They realize that, they're not perfect. It's not always attached to their self-esteem, and their self-acceptance is part of being able to accept their mistakes. High parental expectation, that's a support thing, where the parents they have high expectations, and the student understands that. They have a positive way of dealing with their perfectionistic tendencies, with the emphasis on a positive way, knowing that that's a good thing. It strives for their excellence. They have role models who emphasize doing their best, and they have a view of personal effort. It is an important part of their perfectionism, the personal effort with the emphasis on their effort. Now, there are some dysfunctional sides of perfectionism. Besides the clicker not working. There we go. Okay. It gives us a state of anxiety about making errors. And I think some of us probably, as parents or teachers of GT students, maybe have struggled with some of these same things in some degree ourselves. But they live in and develop a sense of anxiety that's unhealthy. They have extremely high standards. And you might say, well, what's wrong with that? We want our children to have high standards. But the emphasis here is on extremely. Extremely to the point where they don't focus on what their achievements are. They focus on somebody else got a higher grade than I did. Their perceived excessive expectations and negative criticisms from others. So if a teacher tells them, oh, that was wonderful, 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 everything was wonderful except this one little thing, well, they will focus on that one little thing and get obsessed over that instead of the 99 things they did correct. They question their own judgments. They have a hard time making decisions sometimes because they don't want to make a mistake, and they even question their own judgments. And they have a lack of effective coping strategies. So we're going to look at some of those tonight, highlighted by the author of this article. And they have a constant need of approval. So if you have a little one that has that tendency, you might watch that carefully, because if they're constantly needing your reassurance and your approval that everything is perfect and everything is right, that might be an early sign that they might be struggling with some of this. So some common characteristics are they tend to come in many packages. We can't, like anything else. If you have 3 children, they're going to have 3 personalities, right? If you have 3 perfectionists, they're going to be perfectionists in different areas. So some are intense and demanding from birth. Some is just a characteristic they were kind of born with. One of my daughters was born giving orders in the delivery room. The other was very calm. So the one that was born giving orders, she's an attorney now. She gets paid to argue. And I just want to always, I'd say, I want to go to court and just hear you say, yes, Your Honor. That's what I just really want to hear that. Because that was not how easy she was to raise. So from birth, she was kind of more demanding like that, where the other one was like very calm and laid back. And I'm like, same parents, same environment, unreal. But for some, a learned behavior influenced by critical parents or teachers, and I might add here, perceived, their perception. Because remember, our perception is our reality. So the parents and teachers might be striving for them to do their best, but the student may be seeing that as critical. So we have to be careful with that and how they're taking and perceiving it. Some are disappointed if anything associated with them is less than perfect. And that might be less than perfect family, less than perfect classroom, less than perfect clothes, less than perfect anything. So those are some things that we should watch for. Some only demand perfection related to schoolwork. And one of the first signs that you might notice is, how do they deal with competition? Even at a very early age, playing games. Do they have to win? At all costs, do they have to win? That's one of the signs. I remember my grandmother used to say, cheaters never win. And I remember as a little girl, I used to figure out all kinds of ways to win. And she would say, cheaters never win. And I'm thinking, I just cheated and I won that game. It was a long time before I realized, no, you didn't really win because you didn't play according to the rules. So that competition, that early competition, how they perceive that is very, sometimes a clue. A lifelong challenge, but coping effectively can be learned, just like anything else. We don't change personalities. We learn coping mechanisms and strategies for helping it be beneficial to us. So parents may wonder, should I get counseling for my child? Well, it depends on the degree of perfectionism that you're experiencing or witnessing. And and the extent to which perfectionistic tendencies are leading to other problems, such as health problems, relationship problems, underachievement, things like that. So you might begin with discussing those observations with your child's teacher. One of the things that the panel, they were such a great thing. I mean, that was just like the best meeting of this I've ever been to, listening to them. That was awesome. I just loved it. And if you heard them, and I know you did, because I was hanging on every word they said. The perfectionist part of me was like wanting to go over my notes, but I was hanging on every word they said. I'm like, they're just speaking from their heart. I'm just going to go up there and do that too and have fun. So, they were just such a blessing to me tonight. But they were all talking about how their teachers work together and how it was all a cumulative effect to get them where they are. And that's what we have to really focus on, the teamwork that we have with parents, teachers, administrators, community people, and everything working together. Support and help child move forward through our modeling and developing strategies for coping. Okay, so in coping, we're going to look at these 7 things. 1, don't take it personally. 2, know when to quit. 3, match the time commitment to the value of the assignments. 4, set goals and focus on improvement. 5, study the lives of eminent people. Enjoy the journey, and modeling. First, let's quickly look at self-worth concept. And I don't want to just read all this because you can read, but I just want to say on this slide that we have to be very careful that their giftedness or high intelligence does not equate with their self-worth. Just like a little girl who's really, really pretty, and all she hears is a little girl, oh, she's so pretty, oh, she's so pretty, oh, she's so pretty. She grows up thinking that's her identity. So what happens when she gets older? And she might still be very beautiful, but she looks in the mirror and she doesn't see what she looked like when she was a little girl, and people were saying, oh, she's so pretty, oh, she's so pretty. So her self-worth is damaged and compromised, and she's questioning that. Same thing can go with a boy and his athletic ability. What happens when he's a super athlete, just totally gifted athlete, and then he's very famous athlete, and then what happens when he starts going down a little bit, as age will do to you? If his self-concept is attached to that, he may not feel as good about himself. Well, the same thing goes with our intelligence and giftedness. So we want to be sure that it's not an atonement of value, that we help them understand that they can separate their self-worth from their grades that they receive on assignments and products. Having a rubric as a parent really helps you. If the teacher provides a rubric, you can take apart the assignment and say, well, you did really well in this part, but this part, let's look at how you might improve here and look at the process. Okay. So know when to quit. If you're doing a project, there's tons and tons of information out there, right? Google everything. Thousands of articles on anything you want to write about. So one of the things is you need to know when to quit. When is enough enough? Where do you need to draw the line? And sometimes they need help in some closure in each part of the project, and that might involve going over the expectations of the project, what is the criteria that the teacher's providing, and be sure you're helping them stay within that realm of where they're going. Because it's very easy for them to go off on a tangent down a path of interest to them that's not really related to the assignment, and that might be something that alters their grade. So help them stay and monitor them in keeping the project within those parameters that the teacher provides. I don't know why that's coming up so weird, the wording up there. Match the commitment with the value of the assignment. So again, this is where a rubric is very powerful to you as a parent if the teacher provides a rubric, because you can help them look at see, okay, you really did great on this aspect, you really did great on this aspect, but this one you lost a couple points because, and let's see what in the process of improving, how might we bring that up? Because you did great here, and let's work on the process. That's why rubrics are so helpful to students in understanding. And help the students express how the addressed parts were valued and why. Maybe why did the teacher put so much value on this particular part? You know, they might say, well, I did so great on this, but she didn't give me as many points. That was only worth 20 points, and this part was worth 10 points. So maybe help them understand how the weighting. Some students may not need to know why, but I was always one of those kids that needed to know why. It wasn't that I was trying to be disrespectful. It was important to my understanding to move forward and see how it was beneficial. So those why questions are very valuable. Shows we're thinking. Set goals and focus on what? Improvement? Yeah. Okay, attain excellence in incremental improvements over time instead of the quantum leaps. Help them realize that little pieces of improvement along the way. Very rarely do we just jump to success, do we? They need to know our stories. Did we just hatch into this? No, it was a process. You know, we all have our stories about the obstacles we overcame. So help them set goals and work toward their achievement. Look at Olympians over 4 years. They don't look at, okay, they're at this Olympics and then all of a sudden they jump to this one. They have 4 years of improving their times along the way. Help them with an action plan and monitor attainment using maybe SMART goals. SMART meaning, let's see, specific, measurable, attainable. The R is for realistic and the T is for timely. If you write goals with those kinds of things included in it, it makes it much more easy to be accountable for and go back and check. And then study people that you admire. I think teaching with biographies is one of the most powerful ways to teach on the social and emotional needs of students. Can you see? Okay. Because you're able to look at people that they admire or consider successful. And I always tell my students, if someone was famous enough for someone to write a biography about them, they had obstacles they had to overcome to be successful. So again, helping them understand that every successful person has made some mistakes. They learned from those mistakes and they got better. Einstein says that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So, you know, and we all admire Einstein. Did I go? I think I skipped one. Right? Journey. Celebrate the fact that your child has high ideals. This is a great thing, right? It's a great thing. It's what we want for our child. But help your child find an activity that'll help him or he or she in making a difference in the world. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe it's something that, because that doesn't require perfectionism, does it? It's something that you can do. Maybe it's something volunteering at the animal league or, you know, something like that where they can just make a difference. So that so that self-esteem is not attached to being perfect at something. Savor accomplishments more than focusing on the unmet ones. And then also find hobbies and pursuits that bring joy and reduce stress. This is really important for a lot of our students, to find some outlet that's not attached to grades or perfection or competition, but something that they can just do and enjoy that actually reduces stress. And some of those might be some extracurricular activities. And then modeling, again, like I've said before, it's very important that they know where we came from, the things that we've experienced when we were their age. Some of the things that their grandparents experienced, or some of the people that they admire experienced. And model those and tell them the healthy ways that you have learned, or you still are learning how to cope with imperfections. Okay? So model and discuss strategies for maintaining excellence without the stress of achieving perfection. This is one of the reasons I chose that article, because many of these references, I looked at the references of this author of the article, and many of these are references that I use when I present professional development for the district. Several of the books I have personally, I've read several of the articles, and these people are well known in their research field of social emotional needs of the gifted. So his reference list was a large part of why I chose that article to highlight for you this evening. Do you have any questions? Yes?
Do you mind telling me the name of the article again?
Yeah, let me go back to that. Let me go all the way back. Yeah, I don't know why that font came out like that. It was, I have it written on my paper. Let's see. Maybe I can read it better from back here. Nope, can't read it too well from back here either. Yes, that's the name of the article is Helping Gifted Students Cope with Perfectionism. Any other questions? Anybody here recovering perfectionists as well that will admit it?
God, I was reading that, and I was like, oh my God.
And some of us had to learn it by our own ways, right? Right?
I'm going to take that advice like now.
Yes, because I think once you struggle with that, it's not a cure. It's you learn strategies. But you don't want to lose that part of your personality or your child's because you are striving for excellence. But at the same time, you don't want to create self-defeating behaviors. Okay, good. Any other questions? Yes.
As a parent, we don't know what it means to be a father or mother of a different child. We think they are perfect, they can do everything perfect, and we don't know better than demand or expect only A's, only perfect things. So, what is a GT child? What to expect as a parent?
Well, I wish there was a simple answer to that. Because even within a GT classroom, there's DI, meaning differentiated instruction, because we have many different types. Giftedness comes in many different packages, just like anything else. So you just have to know your child and know the things that, listen to them, talk with your child's GT teacher, try to understand maybe what some of their needs are. What's that, Gina? Yes. Okay, you're Gina's. Okay, good. You got a great teacher there. She's excellent. So she's going to be your greatest resource. Anyone else?
I just want to share that I'm a first-year GT teacher.
Oh.
And I'm also a parent of a child who's in middle school. And in the workshops I've been going through, this is a big year of growth for me in this profession. And I feel like I understand my daughter better.
Yes.
You know, all her life, she was little, couldn't even talk, but she never liked the tags on her clothes, you know? And I didn't understand that because, of course, my other daughter's not like that, you know? And I know we're not supposed to compare them like we said, night and day, same household.
Yes,
night and
yes,
day.
yes.
And so I came home one day and I went to the workshop on, I think it was a Super Saturday or they're called Engaged Saturdays now, I think. It was a lot of this subject matter. And I told my husband, I know why Galena rips the tags off of everything now.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, just, you're right, everybody is so different. And you just have to kind of get to know your child.
I thought my daughter, trying on dresses for Easter, she was just being difficult. She wouldn't try anything on with tags. And I thought, well, I can't take the tags out. We haven't paid for it yet. I just thought she was being difficult. And when I first started doing research in this several years ago, when I started presenting staff development as a GT teacher, I remember calling her on my way home that night and saying, I'm so sorry I was such a bad parent to a GT student. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, I presented tonight and I felt like the biggest hypocrite because I was saying all these things that I had not done for you. But anyway, when she was in law school, she was president of the student bar and she was in charge of ordering these T-shirts. And she called me so excited. She goes, guess what, Mom? I found a company that has T-shirts without tags in them. Yes.
And I want to kind of talking about your topic, and not all GT kids are perfectionists either, because you don't have to be a perfectionist to be smart. And I think that the perfectionists think that, because that's what I always thought, and being one myself, and what I've realized is that my daughter, who's this awesomely amazing free spirit who could give two anythings about whether she gets this or that, and she's just really smart. So I think that it does, you have to, like you were saying, you have to know your kid, and I just wanted to stress that not all GT students are perfectionists.
Right. So thank all of you for being here tonight. I'll be here around and, be willing to visit with any of you, but we want to honor your time, so at this time I'll turn it back over to Jeff, our president. The necklace.
I've almost choked myself. That's why I don't wear the necklace anymore. Well, thank you so much to Ms. Cooper and that very informative presentation. We hope once again that each of you that came out tonight are going to leave here perhaps learning something new that you didn't know before. So if there's no other questions for myself or any of the other council members, we'll adjourn for the evening. I think we're Yeah, close to right on time. So, but we'll be hanging around if you guys want to have any sidebar conversations. But thank you so much for coming out tonight. We appreciate that.